Welcome to this special edition of Hannity, Double Standards and Hypocrisy, the left's COVID response. I'm Jason Chaffetz in for Sean, and tonight the White House is in a state of chaos. Surprise, surprise. Mask mandates, vaccine mandates, possible new lockdowns. Schools are going to try to reopen in the fall, or will they? According to conflicting messages from the Biden administration, all of these draconian measures may or may not be coming back. This, as leaked documents show new panic surrounding the Delta variant at the Centers for Disease Control. Just today, President Biden vowed that more restrictions are likely headed our way. Have a look.
Should Americans expect more guidelines coming up, more restrictions because of COVID?
In all probability.
To make matters worse, Biden's Surgeon General is now apparently recommending that Americans now wear masks outside. Watch.
So the people that we're most concerned about are the unvaccinated. For example, if you happen to have a lot of interaction with folks who are unvaccinated, let's say you're a parent like me who has young children at home who are not vaccinated, that's a circumstance where being extra cautious and wearing that mask, even if you're fully vaccinated, wearing it outside when you're in indoor public locations is an extra step to protecting those at home.
So the question tonight is, how is this following the science? Joining us now are Fox News medical contributors Dr. McCary and Dr. Nishawat. Thank you both for joining us tonight. Dr. Nishawat, I want to start with you because this idea that they're suggesting that as a parent, you wear a mask indoors with your own children and then go outside with your own children, maybe in your backyard, and then continue to wear a mask? I mean, where is the science behind that?
There is no science behind it, Jason. In my opinion, I think it's unrealistic and a little bit absurd. I hate when we put the burden of protection on our children. The adult, the parent should be vaccinated or at least wear their mask around their children. I think it's unhealthy. There's no data to support that if you are vaccinated that you need to wear a mask indoors around your own family members, especially around children who are at very low risk. Now, if you have a child that just had an organ transplant or is undergoing chemotherapy for cancer, sure, I understand taking that extra precaution. But for the most part, it's not necessary, and it does not follow any data or science that we have. It's not even recommended by the CDC. And as far as outdoors, you do not need to wear a mask outdoors. We have a constant exchange of natural airflow and ventilation. That is sufficient. You will not pick up coronavirus outdoors. That is very low risk. Now, if you're in a New York City subway train packed, that's another reason. Okay, you can wear your mask then. But for the most part, being vaccinated it means you don't need to wear your mask in those situations.
And Dr. McCary, address the younger populations because fortunately, this is not a virus that targets first and foremost younger populations. And yet you hear about kids going to soccer camp in the heat of the summer having to wear these masks. And there are studies that actually say that's not healthy, correct?
That's right. There are downsides, and I think we forget about that. You know, it's not just about the transmission of the virus. It's about value and dignity to kids and their livelihoods. And when you take that away, guess what? You introduce other medical problems. Now, there's zero science behind masks in kids, just as Dr. Nishawat said. Zero. It's amazing. $42 billion a year the NIH has spent each year during COVID, and not a single study on it. I'd love to see the data. If they're going to issue this recommendation so vigorously, how about give us the data? Zero data on how many of the 335 deaths in the entire year-and-a-half pandemic in kids under 18 were healthy. Zero data. And zero data on how many of those kids were hospitalized for COVID, not just with an incidental positive COVID finding.
Now, Dr. Nishawat, what I found interesting this week is that this administration, why can't they release the data, the underlying data, and trust people like yourself to go out and analyze it while also issuing new guidance and telling us that, hey, they're thinking that because of this data, they're having to do X, Y, and Z. Why not release this stuff simultaneously?
Yeah, well, we should for the most part. You know, doctors, we like to practice evidence-based medicine. Show me the money. Show me the data that shows that wearing a mask indoors as a vaccinated person is going to save thousands and thousands of lives. It doesn't really exist. Wearing a mask indoors, vaccinated, will protect others. It will protect others who are unvaccinated or immune compromised, those who are vulnerable. But they are the ones that should be vaccinated. They are the ones that should be masking up. We really are looking at this all wrong. We're looking at it backwards. We need to put our focus on the unvaccinated, on the vulnerable, not the low-risk people who are already vaccinated and are low risk. I think if we shift our energy and our focus, then we can stop the acceleration and the prolongation of this pandemic.
Dr. McCary, what's your thought on this? You know, as a parent, somebody who has younger children and some kids that are in their 20s now, what should they be doing? What is the actual science at this point?
Well, look, the science on kids is pretty simple. There are select kids with pre-existing conditions, and those are the ones at risk. The rest of the kids out there have a risk of COVID far below that of other infectious diseases that circulate in society. And we're not going to eradicate this infection from society. Right now, you're seeing this furious attempt to demonize those who are unvaccinated in search of elimination. We have downgraded this infection, and that's what vaccination immunity or natural immunity does. We're probably going to see Delta crest in late August or September, and we have to recognize it's not going to go away. We're going to live with it for seasons to come, like the other 4 coronaviruses that cause common cold-like symptoms each year.
Thank you both. Really do appreciate it. Dr. McCary and Dr. Nishwat, thank you very much. All right, tonight, amid all of the COVID confusion, one thing is absolutely clear. The left really wants you to wear a mask as much as possible, unless, of course, you're a Democrat. Here's Speaker Nancy Pelosi taking her mask off for a photo shoot. This is days after threatening to arrest unmasked individuals at the Capitol. Here is House Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler also not wearing a mask. Here is the Deputy Press Secretary of the United States breaking the administration's mask policy 2 days in a row. And here is her boss, Joe Biden, with something on his chin. And as you can see on your screen, an aide wrote him a note saying, "Sir, there is something on your chin." Biden promptly wiped his face. Notably, it's not a mask, just likely a piece of food. Apparently, we're in the middle of a deadly pandemic, unless, of course, you're a Democrat. But fear not, because Nancy Pelosi is a big advocate for personal choice and medical privacy. Just watch this.
So here's the thing. We cannot require someone to be vaccinated. That's just not what we can do. It is a matter of privacy to know who is or who isn't. I can't go to the Capitol physician and say, give me the names of people who aren't vaccinated so I can go encourage them to, or make it known to others to encourage them to be vaccinated. So we can't do that.
That was from April when she was actually correct. Now she's trashing the GOP for not promoting vaccines harder, all while the Biden administration flirts with nationwide vaccine mandates. But through all the hysteria and confusion, let's not lose sight of one important fact. COVID-19 originated in Wuhan, China. The government of China attempted to cover up the outbreak, and instead, they infected the world. And now, according to a bombshell new report, Dr. Fauci was warned early on by a top scientist that the virus appeared to be engineered. So why did Fauci seemingly ignore this warning for so many months? Joining us now with reaction is Florida Congressman Byron Donalds, along with ranking member of the House Oversight Committee James Comer and Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. Thank you so much for joining us. Congressman Donalds, I want to start with you because you got to be there, like Congressman Comer, on the floor, Nancy Pelosi, Jerry Nadler. You got to work with these people. I used to, but, I threw in the towel. So, how did members react when she gives this mandate to the point that you're going to be arrested, and then she's taking it off for photo ops and Nadler doesn't seem to care?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you the members are furious. They're over it. They can't understand, or frankly, we always seem to never be able to understand the thought process of Nancy Pelosi. It is highly tyrannical. To go this far to say that members of your staff or visitors are going to be arrested is ridiculous, and it's insane. I told my staff that I'm going to protect you, that my staff works for me. Visitors come to see me, and if the speaker has a problem with it, she can come see me as another member of Congress. But the issues she issued were completely outrageous, and members have a right to be upset. And the other part that's really a problem is she never gave us any data, no information. She just came down from on high like she's queen, but she's not. She's another member of Congress like everybody else.
Yeah, she does have one vote just like everybody else, and oftentimes she doesn't even exercise this. So, Congressman Comer, you're on the Oversight Committee. I used to be the chairman of that committee. You're the ranking member of that committee. Why has that committee not even attempted to go and dive deep into the origins of the COVID-19 virus? Why is the committee just totally ignoring this?
I have no idea. And Jason, when you were chairman of the committee did great work. And you were followed by Trey Gowdy. He did great work. But then when the Democrats took over, they've just been obsessed with Donald Trump. The biggest issue in America now that we need oversight for is to determine the origins of COVID-19. The Oversight Committee Republicans have been working diligently. We're the ones that uncovered the fact that Dr. Fauci gave $600,000 to the EcoHealth Alliance, which was then funneled to the Wuhan lab. We've been dissecting the non-redacted emails and seeing where he's had, countless flip-flops on COVID with respect to the origination. So we have questions. We're going to continue to dig, and it's very disappointing that the Democrats have no desire to do any normal oversight that the American people want.
This is literally affecting every single person's life and around the world. You would think that they would have some intellectual curiosity and be able to do something with that. But I feel for you because they have the gavel. They get to make those decisions. But Greg Jarrett, and you and I talk and trade text messages along the way. This administration is just stunning to me that they cannot seem to release the data and the guidance at the same time.
Yeah, look, you're not going to get any leadership from Joe Biden. He simply mimics what the CDC says. Makes you wonder who's president here. Is it Dr. Rochelle Walensky, the director of the CDC? Is she the real president here? Look, these mask requirements for vaccinated people, not based on science, not based on reason. They are absolutely idiotic, and the statistics from the CDC itself proves it. If you're vaccinated, according to the CDC, you have a 0.0035 chance of getting a COVID breakthrough, including the Delta variant, and being hospitalized, of dying, even less than that. It's statistically infinitesimal. It is so minuscule, it's really statistically insignificant. And yet the CDC has now reversed course after having said you don't have to wear a mask if you're vaccinated, and says you do. Look, they're punishing the vaccinated, 163 million Americans, for the sins of the unvaccinated. 97% of those who've come down now with COVID in the post-vaccination era are the unvaccinated. 99% represent deaths, unvaccinated individuals. We don't make people during the flu season wear masks, and yet up to 20% of Americans get the flu, 8% seriously sick, and 24,000 people in the last flu season died. And yet we don't wear masks for that. If this is the new CDC standard, we're going to be wearing masks in perpetuity for every virus, every variant, every American, and I don't think most Americans are going to stand for that.
Well, it's about power and it's about control, and that's what it is really about. Look, I got the vaccination. Work with your doctor, medical professional, make a determination yourself. But Congressman Comer and Congressman Donalds, very quickly, what should happen to Dr. Fauci? And I've only got a few seconds.
Well, he should be subpoenaed, and he should want to come to the Congress.
Sorry, my bad. Congressman Comer, go ahead.
Well, he should want to answer questions. Every Republican, every American for that matter, wants to know what he knew and when he knew it. He has a right to tell us. He's worked for the government. He's been the face of COVID-19. He should want to come before Congress and answer every question that every credible member of Congress has.
Well, he's been the highest paid employee, and if he's going to go do a cover shot for InStyle magazine, you'd think he'd have time to come answer some questions from Congressman Comer. Congressman Donalds, real quickly, what is the next step with Dr. Fauci?
He needs to come in and answer questions. It's just that simple. But Nancy Pelosi won't bring him in because she doesn't want to have somebody in front of Congress actually having to answer for the idiocy of the CDC at this point.
Yeah, no, I think you're both right. And the other way to do it is fire him. He should be let go, fire him, and then bring him into Congress and make him ask questions. Greg Jarrett, Congressman Comer, and Congressman Donalds, thank you so much for joining us tonight. All right, up after the break, the media mob is targeting the unvaccinated. And one CNN host even said that people who refuse to get the vaccine shouldn't be able to work or to drive. Joe Concha will react to this and more as this special edition of Hannity continues. Now, as Joe Biden and the Democrats want more COVID restrictions for law-abiding Americans, illegal immigrants continue to stroll across the southern border. Ask yourself, if the Biden administration really cared about containing COVID, why are they embracing open borders? Are migrants being asked to show their proof of vaccine along the way? That's something that we're going to dive into as we get into this. But I got to tell you, what's going on with the media and how they're doing things? That is a real question. So tonight, the media, they're ramping up their attacks on anyone who's unvaccinated, regardless of whether or not they have natural immunity, and claiming they're all out to kill people. Here's just a small sample.
It's all, I have a right to infect my house, to infect my community, to kill everybody. That's fine. But at some point, you know what? We got to say, you can't work for the federal government if you don't have a vaccine. You can't teach school if you don't have a vaccine. You can't work in hospitals if you don't have a vaccine.
You have to be more direct, a more concerted effort to say get vaccinated, because you're not just killing yourself, you're going to kill other people. You got to start telling people if you don't get vaccinated, you can't come into this office or this place of business.
And that's not all. Just look at one far-left lunatic over at Vox who's proposing that Congress should punish the unvaccinated with a 99% tax rate. Are you still starting to feel the unity? And remember, during the Trump era, it was Democrats in the media who were sowing vaccine doubt. Remember this?
We'll have a vaccine by the end of this year. Is that possible in your view?
Oh, Brian, it's another day of POTUS in Wonderland here.
That's an ambitious timeline, and many health experts aren't so sure it's achievable.
Experts are warning that kind of timeline may be overly ambitious, and some have even argued it's perhaps dangerous.
Will we get the best vaccine in this timetable, or will we just get a vaccine?
A coronavirus vaccine, Trump says it could come out this year, this sort of, happy talk that he's doing about a vaccine. Experts say he'd be in need of a miracle to be right.
Let's just say there's a vaccine that is approved and even distributed before the election. Would you get it?
Well, I think that's going to be an issue for all of us. I will say that I would not trust Donald Trump, and it would have to be a credible source of information that talks about the efficacy and the reliability of whatever he's talking about.
I trust scientists, but I don't trust Donald Trump. And at this moment, the American people can't either.
Joining me now for reaction, Fox News contributor and media columnist for The Hill, Joe Concha. Joe, thanks for joining us here. I mean, it really was the Democrats that were sowing doubt and discord. They were downplaying it, saying if Donald Trump has anything to do it, don't get it. They can only look in the mirror. They can't blame Trump. Trump's the one that helped create the vaccine, and it was done by very big, reputable companies and signing off by the government.
Operation Warp speed, Jason, right? And that's a great montage that you just played. But we actually had fact checks last year in the spring saying that it was impossible for there to be a vaccine before the end of 2020, as if the fact checkers have 1.21 gigawatts and a DeLorean who could go into the future to fact check to see if this could happen or not. It's utterly remarkable. I love the fact that you played CNN and them talking about how you have to get vaccinated or you lose their job. Their top-rated anchor, which is like being the skinniest kid at fat camp, broke his own quarantine. He had a police report taken out against him for getting into a verbal confrontation with a 60-something-year-old guy who said, "What are you doing out? You have COVID. I saw you on TV last night talking about how you still had chills and fever." So here you had this anchor, while he's still shedding the virus, getting into verbal confrontations. The same anchor then goes maskless on elevators in his own building. This is pre-vaccine, mind you, to the point where a formal complaint was made against him. And the other CNN anchor that made that argument, Don Lemon, he can make that argument saying you should lose your job if you don't get vaccinated, because he earns 7 figures for being the lowest rated anchor in prime time. So please give me a break. Look, the messaging on this has been all over the place, right? And you look at Joe Biden and you look at his actions, Jason, when he wore 2 masks months after being vaccinated on Zoom calls, mind you, with world leaders, or when he's outdoors around nobody. Kamala Harris, same thing, saying that she would not trust any vaccine that came during the Trump administration. All those things sow doubt. And you look at the numbers, you see that only 36% of African Americans have been vaccinated to this point. Partially because, obviously, historically, things didn't go well, and obviously they hear from family members that are older saying maybe don't take this. 41% of Hispanics, 48% of whites, 65% of Asians have been vaccinated. So when you say this is a political argument, it's Republicans, it's Democrats, it's much deeper than that. And when you try to shame people into taking this vaccine and you say, like the president said earlier this week, you're stupider than I thought you were, that's not going to make one person who says, I'm not going to get vaccinated because I don't believe in vaccines. I don't get the flu vaccine. I'm not going to get a COVID vaccine. I don't trust these things in my body. And I'm fully vaccinated. Trust me. And I wish everybody would take it. But I'm not going to sit here on national television and think, oh, well, if I say it, then therefore you're going to do it. No, people are going to make their own decisions. And again, the messaging on this has been horrible. Rochelle Walensky was on with Brett Baer earlier, and Baer asked, are you for mandating the vaccine, right? The vaccine level, on a federal level, excuse me. And Walensky said, that's something that I think the administration looking into. She then had to tweet out an hour later that she meant portions of the federal government, whether it's Fauci or Walensky, the president, the press secretary. They need a central spokesperson who is on one message and not 4 different messages, Jason.
Yeah, and that's not Dr. Fauci. He has proven he needs to exit stage left and say, you know, thank you, let's move on, because nobody trusts him. I just don't fundamentally trust him because he's flip-flopped on this issue so many times. But Joe, you know, in New York, they're now talking about adding a $100 signing bonus. You go get your vaccine, then you get $100. What about all the people that did the right thing, got the vaccine? Why don't they get $100?
Can that be retroactive, right? It's like forgiving student loan debt. Like, oh, okay, well, then can we all the people that paid their student loan debt like 20 years ago and worked their butt off to do that, can they get the money back too? Look, again, here you have, say, for example, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and she's threatening to arrest people who are not wearing masks at the Capitol. But she's not made one comment, and therefore does not seem to care, Jason, that scores of migrants are entering and staying in the country after testing positive for COVID and being released into the general population. It's literally a super spreader event. We see the White House demanding reporters in the press corps for them to mask up, yet for what? There's been 4 deaths in Washington from COVID over the last 2 weeks, a city that wants to become a state. That's since July 14th, right? Meanwhile, 11 people have been victims of homicides in the city over the same period, yet everybody should mask up in the White House press corps because apparently that's a high transmission zone when it all is not completely. And all too often, you see Dr. Fauci, you mentioned him before, he has this insatiable exposure appetite he cannot control. He's never met a microphone he never liked, and he is all over the place as a result because he's sharing his feelings and not facts. Yeah. He said we should wear no mask, then 1 mask, then 2 masks. Then if you're vaccinated, you still wear a mask. But now actually you should wear a mask because the Delta virus back. Everybody's sitting at home saying, I don't know what to do. This is crazy. I don't trust these people anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, Joe, that is the problem. Look, COVID is real. It is deadly. You got to take it very seriously. But the messaging coming out of the Biden-Harris White House is absolutely just stunning. And Nancy Pelosi, wear a mask, I'll arrest you, and then not wear one. It's just unbelievable. Joe Concha, thank you. Yeah. All right, coming up, more left-wing hypocrisy from the Biden administration, who is begging Americans to take the COVID vaccine while migrants freely flow over the southern border. Well, we got answers from Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who will join us next with Reaction. Plus, why are Democrats obsessed with public health but ignore public safety? Larry Elder and Joey Jones are coming up next as this special edition. Now, tonight we're continuing to see the devastating consequences of Biden and Harris's border neglect as illegal immigrant migrants continue to pour across the southern border. And it's getting worse day by day. Ask yourself, if the Biden-Harris administration really cared about containing COVID, why are they embracing open borders? Are migrants being asked to show their proof of vaccine as they walk across the border? Are migrants being required to show proof of a negative test? And now Biden's Department of Justice is suing Texas for having the audacity to want to secure the state and wanting to do the job that the federal government is refusing to do. And Attorney General Ken Paxton responded in a statement in part, quote, "Texas won't back down. I will defend Governor Abbott's order in court, and we will work together to keep President Biden's out of Texas's business." And Attorney General Paxton, he joins us now. Mr. Attorney General, thank you so much. The crisis there in Texas and across their southern border, the numbers are so stunning. And we see this video and people are literally just streaming across, but so many of them have COVID evidently.
Yeah, you know, it's ironic too. If you're a U.S. citizen and you're coming from another country, you can't get back in if you have COVID. But if you're coming here illegally, you can come across without any testing and you can walk across the border and they will send you somewhere in the country. So this expansion of COVID is not just for Texans. It's going to go all over the country.
Well, explain to us, they come across, they just let them in the door, don't test for COVID. But what are these people supposed to do for food, shelter, a job? I mean, they have no documents. There's no paperwork. And yet they just tacitly open the door. Literally, I mean, you watch that video next to us, they're literally just opening the door and saying, hey, come on in.
Yeah, Jason, that is a really good question. I've been to many of these detention centers where they're holding these people, and they do not ever tell us where these people are going and how long they're staying. They're just transported secretly. The media isn't told. We're not told. Other states aren't told. This is all being done quietly. The media doesn't complain about it. And we have no idea where these people are going with COVID and with some of the other problems that they take with them.
And my understanding is some of them they're bypassing the TSA requirements of showing identification, doing what, again, ordinary citizens have to do. They don't have to do. It's easier for them.
No, it's unconscionable. And what's amazing is that the cartels are the ones helping these people come here. Every one of these people, just about every one of these people, has to pay the cartel to get across the border. That's the only way you can get across. And they also are importing more drugs as a result. There's more human trafficking along our border. There's more property crimes. There's all kinds of crime associated with this. And the Biden administration is suing us because our governor is willing to step up and try to stop some of these harms that the federal government is not just, they're basically turning their head to, they're inviting it in.
Yeah. Oh, well, good luck with that suit. We'll be watching it closely. Attorney General for Texas, Ken Paxton, thank you so much for joining us tonight on Hannity. And as Democrats obsess over counterproductive health guidance, they also continue to ignore the public safety crisis in our major cities. If Democrats really cared about preserving life, then why are they so indifferent and seemingly apathetic toward the lives being lost to senseless violence all across the country? Why do they want to dismantle the police, and why do they refuse to admit their culpability in creating this crime crisis? Here for reaction, California gubernatorial candidate Larry Elder and Fox News contributor Joey Jones. Larry, let's start with you. Look, you're running for the governor of California. You're doing quite well, as best I can tell. But one of the big issues, I think, from everywhere up and down the state of California, I was born there. I live in Northern California, Southern California. It does not feel safe there.
Right.
How do you address that? And how are you going to be different than what the Democrats have offered for literally decades?
Well, Jason, if I'm lucky enough to be elected governor of California, and if enough people go to electelder.com, that's going to happen. The number one job of government is to protect people and property, and it's not happening. Under this governor, during the COVID situation, 20,000 convicted felons have been released. What could possibly go wrong? Many of them are going to reoffend based upon the statistics. We've had this anti-police narrative that has caused defunding the police. As you know, former Senator Barbara Boxer just got mugged the other day in Oakland, and the Oakland PD happens to be black. The other day gave a press conference where he talked about millions of dollars being diverted from the Oakland PD. Out here in Los Angeles, the LAPD has lost $150 million because of the defund the police movement. It's absolutely insane. And the people who are hurt disproportionately are the very people that the left claims they care about, black and brown people. If I become governor, I'm going to make sure the number one responsibility to protect people and property is going to be enforced.
Joey, you fought and bled for this country. Your patriotism shall never more ever be questioned. And yet, we just heard the Attorney General of Texas talking about how it's so much easier to be here illegally, to cross the border. You don't have to do things that Americans are asked. How does that make you feel?
Right.
Yeah, it's sickening. And what really bothers me, if I go to fly on a plane, I always quip that if you want to be treated like a terrorist, lose your legs fighting them, because then TSA will treat you like a terrorist. And you know what? That's okay. I don't make a stink with those officers. They're usually super nice about it. But that's the standard that I have to meet as someone who went to war for this country and unfortunately lost my legs. I have to meet a higher standard than the person to my left and right just to fly on a plane. And so I can live in a world where certain things are expected of the rule followers, but if you're not a rule follower, those things aren't expected from you. It's like when a cop pulls over the nicer car because he feels like that person will pay the ticket. It's that kind of thing. That's the world we're living in now. Democrats have purposefully made it easier for people to not follow the rules, and when you call them on it, they say, oh, well, those people are socioeconomically disadvantaged, and it's not fair to expect them to do something like not commit murder or not commit larceny or not steal because they're coming from a bad place in life, and we owe them something. Listen, I'm all about lifting everyone up, but you don't lift people up by telling them they're not going to be held responsible for their actions. Listen, I live in Georgia. The community of Buckhead is trying to become the city of Buckhead because they don't feel safe with Atlanta PD being the only way to protect themselves. That's a big problem, and it's not something that's just specific to Georgia. And so now we're further dividing ourselves, even in our urban areas, because people want to be safe, and if their city won't keep them safe, they're going to keep themselves safe. It's not the America we want. It's not the America anybody wants.
Larry, we've been watching videos of people streaming out of their Walgreens or Target, stuff like that. They just brazenly go in, grab stuff, and go out. There's no consequence. And they know there's going to be no consequence. They don't even run anymore. They just open up the door of the vehicle and stroll away.
Yeah, surprise, surprise, when you make it easier for criminals to be to not get caught, to not be convicted, to not be incarcerated, crime goes up. And regarding the order made by the Texas governor, he's going to be called racist, but never mind the generations of Hispanics that live in Texas, generations of Hispanics that live in California for years and years and years. They don't want illegal immigration either. One dirty little secret is Cesar Chavez, the hero of the United Farm Workers, he hated illegal immigration. He was born in America, and he knew that illegal immigrants posed threats to jobs and put downward wages on the wages of people who are in the country illegally. So it's not a good deal for anybody for us to have open borders, particularly when so many of these illegal aliens have COVID. It's absolutely outrageous.
No, I think people are losing faith in their government and the equal application of justice. Joey, I've got just a few seconds. What are your comments on that?
Yeah, I come from a town that's 78% Hispanic inside the city limits. And let me tell you, people that live in that town came here, a lot of them illegally, and a lot of them are first generation or DACA. And this is the thing that people won't tell you, Democrats won't tell you. Living in the shadows is not joining the American way of life. Every person that crosses illegally lives in the shadows. They don't get to be a part of this great country. Have legal immigration and bring as many people as our country can take and make them a part of our country. Don't make them live in the shadows, and that's the game the Democrats are playing, and it's unfair to those people.
Gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. Joey Jones and Larry Elder, thank you very much. All right, coming up, despite a push from the left to enforce draconian restrictions in schools, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said parents should be the ones to decide if their children wear masks. Radical idea, parents. Sean Duffy and Leo Terrell will join us next with reaction as this special edition of Hannity continues. Welcome back to this special edition of Hannity. While the COVID-19 virus has largely spared children, the lockdowns put in place because of it have had devastating effects on their learning, social development, and their well-being. Kids in some areas have been locked out of their classrooms for months. And with the Delta variant spreading, the American Federation of Teachers President Randy Weingarten suddenly can't guarantee that schools will reopen in the fall. Some places are making the in-person return harder. For example, in Los Angeles public schools, all students and teachers will have to be COVID tested at least once a week, vaccinated or not. But in the free state of Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis has just issued an executive order banning mask mandates in schools. He says parents should be the ones deciding if their kids wear masks. This comes as Texas Governor Greg Abbott yesterday signed an executive order that bans city and local governments from requiring vaccines or mask mandates, including public schools. Here now with reaction are Fox News contributors Sean Duffy and Leo Terrell. Thank you both. Leo, all things California, all vaccines all the time, no matter where you are, indoors, outdoors, breathing the fresh air up by Mammoth. That doesn't matter. They want you to be masked and they want you to be tested. How's it flowing for you there in California? We're going to get you out of there one of these days.
It's flowing horrible. It's flowing horrible, Jason, and that's why I applaud Florida and Texas. With a $2 million gift to Gavin Newsom from the teachers union, they are making it almost impossible for kids to go to school. We're less than 2 weeks away. They are now demanding either you get vaccinated and tested. Even if you're vaccinated, test it. The thing that hurts me the most, the Democrats talk a good game about helping people of color. They are wrecking the lives of young people of color by denying them education. The teaching union do not want to go back to school, Jason. They want to earn their paycheck from home. And they're trying to provide an incentive to do inline or online training. That's why Randy Weingarten said she couldn't commit to in training or in classroom training. It's a sham, and it's very, very hurtful for people of color.
Yeah, and people of color and our kids. They don't put kids first. Now, Sean Duffy, you and I got to serve in Congress together. We also got to serve with a guy named Ron DeSantis, he's a pretty good member of Congress, but he's a really good governor, if you ask me. And he's out there doing some things. Texas is doing some things with this radical idea that parents should make the decision about whether or not their kids wear masks. Is that the right policy?
Yeah, how not right? First, the next time we see Leo on TV and other Californians, he's going to be wrapped in saran wrap or bubble wrap. That's the next phase we're going to go to in California. They're so crazy. But thank God for Texas and Florida. Ron DeSantis, we have this concept of subsidiarity. We want decisions made at the most local level possible, right? And Ron DeSantis stepped in as the governor and stopped school boards and cities from putting mask mandates in place. But what Ron realized was that parents are the most local place possible where these decisions should be made. They should decide whether the kids go to school with a mask or not. That's called freedom, right? I love that. I mean, this is why elections have consequences, and it's so great that Ron DeSantis is there. But here's what concerns me about this. When Randy Weingarten, the head of the teachers union, says we're going to try to reopen schools, let's interpret that to mean they're going to do everything they can to make sure our schools are shut down. They don't care about our kids. They don't care about their education or their health or seeing smiles and how to read smiles on people's face. They care about the union. So listen, we have to ban the union. We have to dismantle the teachers union. And what concerns me as a parent of 9 kids, that I send my kids 8 hours a day to be taught by these Looney Tunes who are anti-science and anti-child? What the heck are they being taught? These are crazy people that we send our kids to every day. School choice is the answer. And by the way, one last point, to what Leo said, the poor kids, minority kids, are getting hurt by these policies because if you have money, you are sending your child to a school, in-person learning. It's a charter school. It's a parochial school. You are getting an education for your kids. But if you don't have the money because you're in the inner city and you're poor, your kids are stuck at home on Zoom and not learning anything.
Yeah, and you hope they're paying attention to Zoom. Now, Leo, what's wrong with self-determination? What is the argument supposedly against allowing a parent to make decisions? I thought the Democrats were the one who would say, my body, my choice. I don't hear them saying that about this.
You know what? I'll tell you, the Democratic Party, Jason, has been hijacked the last 8 years. As far as what Sean was talking about, freedom, liberty, that's the American way. The Democrats, and we're in the bluest state. I don't want to use the inappropriate word. I am in the worst state in the country. And the bottom line is the progressive wing of the Democratic Party has hijacked the educational system, the justice system, and it is horrible here. That's why we have a recall election in California. The freedom is in Texas and Florida.
Sean, what are we going to do? What should parents do? I mean, you're up in Wisconsin. I'm in Utah. Not everybody lives in Florida. What do you think parents should do to gain control?
But the evidence, to Leo's point, is people are leaving California and New York and going to the states of freedom. That's why, you want to get a U-Haul and move to New York, it's cheap. You want to get a U-Haul and go from New York to Texas, it's really expensive because everyone is moving there. But Jason, you and I follow politics, and I think this is interesting. When you have an open border, or you want to tax billionaires, or you want the Green New Deal, that really doesn't, for a lot of people, affect them, right? They don't have the effects of that policy. But you shut down schools, or you make my little first grader put on a mask for 8 hours a day. Now you've penetrated into my home, and there is a seething rage, I think, with parents across this country who want to make sure they're protecting their little kids. And they know the teachers unions, Fauci, the CDC, Biden are not protecting their kids or their education. And there's going to be a massive political blowback and backlash. That's why I think Republicans are going to take control of the House for sure by a big number. And I think very likely the Senate as well, because Americans want balance and they want sanity for their kids and in their government policies.
And they want some data to back it up. I think Americans would actually do things if they believed in what was being said to them. But you know what? They don't. And when they allow these, literally by the tens of thousands, people to cross our borders who we know have COVID, a certain percentage of them have COVID, they don't have masks. Hey, come on in, Leo. That's the message in California more than anywhere is doing that.
It's a mixed message. It's a wrong message. It's a misleading message. And it scratches the head of everyone who lives in California. They're demanding all these controls on American citizens, and they open the door to illegal aliens who have COVID, who are not wearing a mask. It doesn't make sense. And I agree with Sean. There's going to be a tsunami in 2022. We're going to retire Nancy Pelosi, and we're going to recall Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, I think America is fed up with that. They want to take control. I got a heart out, Sean. I got to go because more of this special edition of Hannity will be right back after the break. Stay with us.